Today's session is on chest X-rays pertaining to respiratory pathologies. Now the steps in reading X-ray would be like whether it is PA or AP view, positioning, exposure, overexposed or underexposed, inspiratory film or expiratory film, soft tissue and bony cage, a comment on that, trachea and mediastinum. Then we have a look at the heart, which we will take up in a separate session. Diaphragm, costophrenic angle, hilum, lung fields, and then we will discuss how to read the lateral chest X-ray. And always use X-ray lobby to read chest X-ray, otherwise you will miss findings. Now PA or AP. PA view, the X-ray is coming from the back and the X-ray film is on the front of the patient. So much so, the soft tissue, the heart, everything is almost very near to the X-ray film. But in AP view, the X-ray film is in the back and the X-ray is coming from anterior to posterior, which means that scapular shadow will be more prominent, the bones, the vertebrae will be more prominent, basically because the X-ray film is posterior, very near to all these structures. And there will be a spurious cardiomegaly because the X-ray is coming from the anterior portion and then expanding like that. The cardiac shadow appears a bit enlarged. And the clavicle apparently above the lung fields. Two reasons. One, of course, because the X-ray beam is putting it that way, and second is when taking AP view, we place the child in the table and pull up the arms. So naturally the clavicle will move up and the scapular shadow will be there in the film, as compared to PA view where we actually stand in an embracing position, so much though the scapula move away from the film. Now see the clavicle in these two films. See here the clavicle is within the lung field. Here in the AP view the clavicle is actually outside the lung field. That's what I mentioned. Now positioning. You look at the position of the clavicle from the spinous process. See, it is almost equidistant, which means it is properly positioned. If one clavicle is nearer to the spine as compared to the other, that means it is actually a rotated film. Once the film is rotated, one hilum will appear more prominent than the other, basically because one hilum is actually nearer to the film. Now penetration. An under-penetrated film means you will imagine many shadows, and over-penetrated film means you will miss many soft tissue shadows. Now a full inspiratory film means you count the rib, the anterior end. You see, this is the first rib, this is the second rib, like that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sixth rib is at the middle of the diaphragm. So it's a full inspiratory film. In a full expiratory film, it may be at the fifth or even the fourth. And in actual practice, children wouldn't be taking full inspiration as instructed. So it will be somewhere between full inspiratory and full expiratory. Now looking at the soft tissue shadows, soft tissue means extra thoracic soft tissue because lung and heart are also soft tissues. So what we mean is the extra thoracic soft tissue, and here you see air shadows. See, so that means it is a subcutaneous emphysema. And another film, again you see the air shadows within the subcutaneous plane, both sides, and the mediastinum also you have air. Beneath the heart also, see, there is an air shadow. So it's a air leaking from the mediastinum into the soft tissues here. Now bony cage, compare both sides. See here the distance between these two ribs and these two ribs, it is crowded. So that means either you are having a scoliosis basically because of the pain or something, or you have a collapse so much so there is a volume loss and hence the ribs are crowded. Now regarding trachea and mediastinum, we can compare the position of the trachea in comparison with the spinous process and see whether it is shifted to the right or left. A minimal shift to the right is normal. And heart shadow, 2/3 of the heart shadow should be to the left and 1/3 to the right of midline. And any localized area of blurring of heart border is basically because that particular shadow is in touch with the heart. If two shadows are in two planes, then one shadow will appear as though going through the other shadow with a sharp margin. The other one, they merge together because they are in contact with each other. And then look for any mediastinal widening. And tracheal shadow, see, this is the this air shadow is the tracheal shadow. We can compare it with the spinous process. The heart, actually we will discuss in detail in the next session, but just a few points. On the right side of the heart border, this is the right atrium, and this shadow is the superior vena cava, and this is right ventricle, this is right ventricle, this is left ventricle, and this is the aorta that is going up and then it will turn and then come down as a descending aorta. This is left ventricle, this is left ventricle. Now coming to the left heart border, this is aorta that is folding out. So this is the aortic knuckle, this is the pulmonary, and here we generally expect a concavity. Here there is a bit bulging, that is the left atrial appendage, and this is left ventricle. So this will be discussed in the next session. Now diaphragm, this is a full inspiratory film, and that's why the diaphragm appears a bit flat. Usually diaphragm will be a little more rounded. So this diaphragm, right diaphragm will be slightly higher than the left diaphragm, and the costophrenic angles are clear, and cardiophrenic angles, these two, see these two, will be a little fuzzy because of the little fat there that is protecting the heart, because it is a beating heart, so you need a cushion there. And see, it's a full inspiratory film. So the costophrenic angles are totally free, and the diaphragm should be uniformly coming, but there's a slight tenting here. This tenting of diaphragm generally is normal as a normal variation in a child. But if clinical scenario warrants that, it could be that a fibrotic band is pulling it up. But that is unlikely in a child, it is more common in an adult. Now regarding the hilum, the right hilum is generally about 1 centimeter below the left diaphragm. See, right is 1 centimeter below the left. And there is one pulmonary, right descending pulmonary artery here, and this pulmonary vein there. So there will be a concavity here. And if it is, this concavity is lost, if this concavity is lost, then there is something there. So if it is convex, it could be a gland. Now, what are the conditions where the hilum is very small? All the T's, tetralogy of Fallot, TGA, tricuspid atresia. And when it is large, there is a large pulmonary artery like pulmonary arterial hypertension, a lymph node, or a full expiratory film where it is apparently large. Drawing of the lateral view, just to show how to read the lateral view. There are two clear areas in lateral view. One is this one above the heart, and one is below the heart. These two areas must be clear. And there is a retrosternal space also. This is the retrosternal space that should not be filled up. Now there is a horizontal fissure here, there is a oblique fissure here going down like this, and the area between these two is the middle lobe, and this is the trachea, and the hilum is somewhere here. And look, we'll go to the next film. Right diaphragm is slightly higher as compared to the left, and the left diaphragm merges with the heart border because it is in touch with the heart border. Anything is in touch together will appear merged, or rather fuzzy. Now look at the lucency of the vertebra. When you come down, you have a lot more of air in the lung, so it will become more lucent. This is less lucent. Coming down, it will be more lucent. If this area appears more dense, then there is something here. So that is how you interpret that. Now this is approximately how the upper lobe, middle lobe and lower lobe is there. This is again will be discussed in our next session. This is regarding the cardiac border. This is the right ventricle, this is the left ventricle, this is the left atrium. Left atrium is posterior, and this is the pulmonary artery branching like this, and this is the aorta that is bending down to the descending aorta. So again, just to show this is the oblique fissure, this is the clear area here, clear area there, and whether this is little more dense than this vertebra, which is not expected. So there is something abnormal here, some shadow is there, and there are two diaphragm. One, this higher one is always the right one. Now coming to the mediastinal widening, this is the typical sail sign of thymus, and this is again thymus only. It is a uniformly radio dense shadow and lobulated. No pressure effect on any of the intrathoracic structures, and those are the characteristics of thymus. This is again the sail shadow here, and here this is possibly not hard border because there is some wavy margin here, so that is typical of thymus. Why wavy? Because thymus is an anterior structure that will be in touch with these ribs, so that is why it is becoming wavy. We will go back to the previous film. See, here also see the waviness. See, it is wavy. So that is characteristic of thymus. So all these shadows are part of thymus, not really heart. Here it is heart. Okay, this is a big mediastinal shadow, and we are not really seeing any waviness. It appears to be a clear line. So it is more likely that it is a mediastinal mass. This is how we separate right upper lobe, right middle lobe and right lower lobe. These are not identical to the zones that we describe in X-ray. Zone means the first two rib areas, upper zone, next two rib areas, middle zone, and last two rib areas, lower zone. And on the left side, the middle lobe area is replaced by the lingular lobe, which is actually part of upper lobe. Now this is a full inspiratory film. Here there is some shadow which is not really in touch with the heart, and what you have to notice is here there is a small effusion which actually is going up. That is why we are thinking more in terms of an effusion. It must be very minimal effusion. This is a child who came with chest pain, so possibly it was a pleurisy and a minimal effusion, possibly because of viral infection. Here the trachea is central from, see, the spinous process is almost in the center of the tracheal air shadow, but the mediastinum actually 2/3 should be to the left of midline and 1/3 right of midline, but instead here it's almost 50% is right of midline. So there is a shift of mediastinum, and there is a shadow here and a little straight or a bit concave border here, and it is not in merging with the heart border. Heart border clearly goes through it, which means our Silotti principle means it is not really in touch with the heart. So this is not middle lobe, this is likely to be lower lobe in touch with the diaphragm, and here the diaphragm becomes indistinct also, so it is in touch with the diaphragm. So this is a consolidated segment, but because of the mediastinal shift and this slightly concave border, it should be taken as a collapse. And a lateral X-ray of this, if we assume that this is the lateral X-ray of that patient, then see here this area must be free like this, radiolucent. We expect this area to be radiolucent, but here it is radiodense, which means this is the consolidated area. And also look at the lucency of the vertebrae, it is more dense here, so there is a overlying consolidation here. So this is the lower lobe consolidation, which we have seen in the PAV also. Now this is something that we very often see, because in children the airways are so small that it gets blocked by mucus so very easily. So this is the so-called lobular atelectasis or segmental atelectasis. So this is basically because the block of the airway that is supplying that particular segment, and very common in asthma. Now here there is a uniform, almost uniform, not exactly uniform, because here this is less dense, and there is a very straight line here. So that is possibly the horizontal fissure. So this is a lobar consolidation involving the right upper lobe, and there is a air bronchogram here. See. And here also there is a shadow. So we do not know what it is. It could be a pleural effusion, basically because it is limited to this lateral area. Sorry, this is limited to this lateral area, and it is the tendency. It has got a tendency to go up. So it is more likely to be synpneumonic effusion, small effusion. Again, here we see the trachea is a little. Of course, it's a rotated film. We cannot comment fully, but it's slightly on the onto the right, and the mediastinum more than 50%, at least 50% is to the right. Actually 2/3 should come to the left. Instead only about 50% has come to the left. So there is an element of collapse, and there is a non-uniform area of haziness. So this is possibly a consolidation with a collapse. And what you are seeing here, small areas of air, that is basically air filled alveoli. That means each and every segment of each and every alveoli is not consolidated. There are alveoli with air. So that is why in consolidation you may not see uniform opacity always. So this is technically called air alveologram, like air bronchogram. But in examination the student need not mention this, because this is not a common term that is used. This is X-ray where there are fluffy opacities, so many here, everywhere. In fact, bilateral, here also you see. So this is the so-called bronchopneumonia. And why it is called bronchopneumonia? Following a viral infection, there is a denudation of our mucosa, the airways. So the organism from the upper airway tracked down the bronchus and then down to the bronchioles and to the alveoli. So small areas of consolidation which later coalesce. The lobar consolidation type of consolidation is unlikely in a small child, basically because of underdevelopment of interalveolar and bronchiolo-alveolar connections. So a consolidation in a small area of alveoli need not go to the next area contiguously. Hence you get these small fluffy areas throughout, and that is bronchopneumonia. And bronchopneumonia basically as the term tells us is bronchopneumonia. It comes through the bronchus, inflames the bronchus, irritates the bronchus, and then causes the parenchymal pneumonia. So since the bronchus is irritated, cough is always there, and wheezing is always there. So there is actually no bronchopneumonia without wheeze or cough. But a lobar consolidation can be there without cough or wheeze. Now here you look, there is some shadow within the heart shadow and a little concave margin. So it could be a small consolidation or a collapse, but possibly the mediastinal shift is only minimal. So actually 1/3 should be on the right. So 1/3 is not in the right. So it is less than 1/3 that is on the right. So there is some mediastinal shift to this side. So it could be a collapse consolidation on the left lower lobe. See here there is a patch of consolidation with a horizontal margin. So that is the horizontal fissure. And this area is in touch with the heart, and that is why they appear to be merging together. So this is called Silotti sign. So this is not lower lobe, this is middle lobe, and middle lobe commonest reason for collapse is obstruction, possibly by a lymph node in tuberculosis and all. This is another opacity here. See, the diaphragm is clearly visible, so it is possibly not touching the diaphragm, so it is less likely to be lower lobe. But heart border, which is very clear up to this, is now getting blurred. So it is in touch with the heart. So it is more likely to be a middle lobe consolidation. See, middle lobe consolidation, lateral view, the consolidated area, see, this is the area which is actually over the heart. So that is typical of middle lobe. Now the corresponding area on the left side is lingula. See, this is a lingular segment consolidation, because see, the heart shadow is well marked here, but once it comes here it gets blurred. So that means it is in touch with the heart, but the diaphragm is quite clear, so it is not touching the diaphragm. So it's not lower lobe, it is lingular segment of the upper lobe on the left side. If it is on the right side, it will be middle. Now we'll have a look at the lateral. See, the shadow in shadow, this is the consolidated area. Now this is consolidation involving the upper lobe, but apical area is spared. So the upper lobe has got apical, anterior and posterior segment. So this can be either anterior or posterior, but it is more likely to be anterior, basically because see, when it is in touch with the heart, it appears to merge with that shadow. So it is Silotti sign, so it is more likely to be anterior. So if we consider that this is the lateral view, then this is the anterior. If it were posterior, we would have seen the shadow here. Now this is another right upper lobe area consolidation. Possibly full upper lobe is not involved. Now taking the lateral view, it is the apical and the posterior segment is involved, but possibly not the anterior. Anterior is spared. So this is possibly, this area is possibly, although we thought it is merging with the heart shadow, lateral view tells us that it is possibly the posterior segment that is involved, not the anterior. So here we have a big area of consolidation with areas of liquefaction. It is a necrotizing pneumonia, which is characteristic of say Staphylococcus or maybe Klebsiella. The sagging horizontal fissure is supposed to be characteristic of Klebsiella in ester years, but it is not really typical. So what we can say is this is a necrotizing pneumonia involving the right upper lobe. So in a child, the commonest etiology will be staphylococcal, and this is another staphylococcal pneumonia with many areas of small abscess. Now have a look at this. This appears to be a consolidation here with a more or less straight upper area. So we tend to think it is the horizontal fissure and this is the middle lobe and all. We tend to think, but have a look here. See, this is a rib, this is a rib, this is a rib, and what is this in between? So now you trace that, see, it's coming down, it's coming down, it's coming down. See, this is a abscess. And why this horizontal level? Because of the fluid inside, pus inside. So this is a very thick walled abscess that is going on like that. So naturally we will think of staphylococci first. This is another abscess. See, the for examination, one differential diagnosis will be encysted hydropneumothorax, where you do not expect lung markings inside this. Here you will get lung marking because behind this abscess there is normal lung tissue. So that will be recorded here. And also hydropneumothorax tend to be towards the lateral side, but once you postulate that it is encysted, it can be anywhere. So this is another abscess. See, this is an area of consolidation with lucency inside and a more or less horizontal level. So it is possibly an abscess or a necrotizing pneumonia, and the location is such that it is likely to be a secondary lung abscess, because when a child is always supine, like a quadriplegic cerebral palsy and pseudobulbar palsy, so generally aspirate, and when the child is aspirating in a supine position, it goes to the most dependent area, which is the superior segment of the lower lobe or the posterior segment of the upper lobe. So this area belongs to these two. So it is given the X-ray alone, it appears to be secondary lung abscess, which is anaerobe, because when you aspirate, it is generally anaerobe. Yeah, this is a round shadow. This is a round shadow, or maybe we can tell it is a round pneumonia. The commonest cause of round pneumonia is definitely the ordinary pneumonia, like pneumococcus or H influenza, like that. Because common things are common always. And the differential diagnosis, definitely they are going to ask in exam. One could be an abscess where it is not emptied through the bronchus. So there is no fluid air level. So that is one. The other differential diagnosis also you can give, like it could be an aspergilloma, or it could be a tuberculous granuloma, or encysted pleural effusion, or some cyst, like a hydatid cyst, but then this opacity is slightly denser than that. Or it could be an extrathoracic structure, like artifact, like a tuft of hair, or something in this chest wall, like a tumor in the chest wall showing up like this. In adult, we think of malignancy and secondaries, which is less likely in a child. This is again another round shadow here. Round shadow, I said, is here there is something bulging out. So there is a mediastinal widening and a round shadow. I said the lateral view, see, this is a round shadow. I said the tumors are less likely in a child, but occasionally, yes. This is a pleural effusion. The shadow quite dense, and there is an upper level in the axilla. Actually, we expect a mediastinal shift, which is not much here, but each and every finding may not be there in all X-rays, so that the student should be careful about. And see the density, it is as dense as the liver, so it is less likely to be a consolidation, because in consolidation, as I said earlier, there will be some air either posterior to it or anterior to it, so that it appears a little less dense as compared to liver. Okay. So the point against is we are not seeing much of a mediastinal shift, although there is a minimal shift here to the right. See why there is an upper level in the axilla like this. Some people say it is the higher level of axilla is an X-ray artifact because the beam is going that way. But actually the hilum of the lung is not in the middle, it is a little above the middle. So much so when the when the effusion comes there and the lung is collapsing towards the hilum, it can collapse only like this. So there will be a higher level in the axilla. So if it is an X-ray artifact, then clinically it should not be detectable. But in a pleural effusion, clinically you will be able to appreciate the upper level in the axilla. So it is an actual higher level in the axilla. Here in this X-ray, there is a horizontal upper level. There is a shadow here which is actually less dense than the liver. So it is more likely to be a consolidation. But when you come here, it appears to be more dense than this. So it could be an effusion because there is an upper level in the axilla also. So it could be a middle lobe consolidation. Lower lobe possibly is involved, we do not know because the diaphragm is not clear. So there is something in touch with the diaphragm, either an effusion or a consolidation. And here there is a higher level in the axilla. So it seems that there is a effusion also, but the shift of mediastinum or trachea is not significant. So this is likely to be a small effusion like a sympneumonic effusion. Here there is a shadow here which is having almost a straight line, and there is a shadow here which is denser than this, and here there is a lucency more than the other side. So this is a hydropneumothorax. See, the mediastinum is shifted to the opposite side. So something is pushing the mediastinum to the opposite side. Here there is a shadow of the collapsed lung, and here there is a area without any lung marking. So this is a pneumothorax, and it has pushed the collapsed lung to this area. So this is a collapsed lung tissue, and here there is some fluid. See, the density is much more than this, and it is almost like a liver shadow. So this is a denser shadow than the consolidation. So this is fluid, and a fluid having a horizontal upper level means there must be air above. Otherwise, we expect it to go up to produce a higher level in the axilla. That is not happening here. So this is a hydropneumothorax. And here there is a shadow here which is less dense than the heart, and the mediastinum is shifted to the opposite side. Trachea is also shifted to the opposite side, and see, there is an area, dark area without much lung marking, which means this is a pneumothorax, possibly tension pneumothorax. It is pushing the mediastinum to the other side. And see the diaphragm, it is flattened as compared to this, so it is under pressure. Another pneumothorax, again heart is more than 50% is pushed to the right side, although it is a rotated film. See, this is without lung markings, and this is the collapsed lung, which is dense shadow but less dense as compared to our liver shadow. And the other side is also involved, so it is possibly a pneumonia with possibly a bullae bursting here to produce this. So it is bilateral. Pneumonia is here also, but in this picture I wanted to emphasize this pneumothorax. Here the diaphragm appears unusually thick. It could be because the X-ray is falling on the diaphragm in a tangential way, but another situation is when you have an effusion in a normal lung, for example a nephrotic child, where a small effusion means if the lung is normal, on inspiration it will push the fluid down, and the lung will expand in its normal contour, which means the fluid is pushed into touch with the diaphragm. So much so this may be the diaphragm, and this may be the visceral pleura, and this may be a small effusion. So that is possible only in a normal lung. Abnormal lung means it will not be able to push, because there will be some pneumonia there, or there will be pain, or the fluid is too much so that it is not pushable. So this is again not for the student to present in exam, because it is not a common thing that is accepted in exam. But still remember, this is possible in a cardiac failure or more in nephrotic syndrome, where your lung is pakka normal and able to push the fluid like this. See the other one, it is more clear. Yeah, this is called subpulmonic. See, this is the lung, subpulmonic effusion. Subpulmonic effusion. Again, student need not give this as a diagnosis in exams, because this is not a commonly accepted term. Yeah, this is an asthmatic child, and see the it is almost 6-7 space almost, and these vessels are unusually prominent. See, there are end-on vessels also, and this is called prominent bronchovascular marking. You should not confuse it with the increased bronchovascular markings that you see in left to right shunt lesions like VSD, where you will see a lot of vessels here also, in the low outer third also. Here, this is the main vessels are airways are inflamed and edematous, and that's why it shows up like this. So this is the prominent bronchovascular marking and very narrow heart and air trapping of asthma. Here when you compare both sides, this side is more loosened as compared to this side, and the heart shadow more than almost 50% is on the right side. So this is the most probably a foreign body blocking here, so that the inspiratory air is allowed in and the expiratory air is not allowed out. And this is not a full expiratory film. In a full expiratory film, this will show up more impressively, because air will go out from here but not from here, so the contrast will be more. But here also it is clearly visible, so it is more radiolucent here, and the mediastinum is shifted. This is a nephrotic, not nephrotic, it is an acute nephritis child complaining of dyspnea without fever. This is pulmonary edema, acute pulmonary edema, because of the circulatory congestion. You give a Lasix and after a few hours this will disappear. Here the hilar area appears, instead of being concave, appears a bit convex and sort of lobular also. So it is possible that it is gland. It possible. We can only say that it is a prominent hilum. And here also there are a few shadows which could be part of pneumonia. See here the hilar shadow is much more prominent, and there is one line here, could be a lymphangitis, there could be a peripheral location gone focus. If it is there, usually gone focus is not visible unless calcified. So if we assume a gone focus here, it is a lymphangitis and this is a lymph node, so it's a typical primary complex if we assume there is a gone focus there. So, and this is the way the hilum appears on a lateral view. Abnormal hilum appears on a lateral view. This is a child who is having tuberculosis. See, so many honeycombing like things. So it is actually, see, so actually it is bronchiectasis, and here you can see a small cavity also, see. So this is a tuberculous cavity and honeycombing, so it is possibly bronchiectasis. Bilateral, here also it is there. But bronchiectasis you diagnose only with HRCT. Here also you can see a small cavity. Cavity in tuberculosis, cavity is likely in a reactivation tuberculosis, where it is like this, it is in the upper lobe. But primary tuberculosis causing cavity is very rare, but it is possible. Like initially the primary focus expands and then gets the caseous material gets expelled through the bronchus. Then you can have a thin walled cavity, but it is rare to have cavity in a primary tuberculosis. So once we see cavity in tuberculosis, think of reactivation tuberculosis if it is in the upper lobe, as it is like this. Here also you will see, this is also a proved case of tuberculosis, you see a cavity. This is also possibly a bronchiectasis, so many honeycomb like areas, and see two parallel lines going. It could be thickened bronchial wall. Parallel lines are seen here also. So without any history it could be bronchiectasis, but if the history is that it is a very acute onset, then interstitial pneumonia becomes a different diagnosis, because in interstitial pneumonia also you will see lot of air spaces, because in interstitial pneumonia you have the interstitium getting inflamed, but the airways are patent and the alveolar air will be there. So you will see aerations also within the opacities. So we will see whether, yeah, this is an enlarged picture of the very same X-ray. See, the railroading is there. So this is possibly bronchiectasis only. We need not think of a DD. Yeah, this is an enlarged film of another X-ray. I enlarged only to see whether these things become prominent. There is something like a reticular formation here, see, aeration, and then these reticular areas are all interstitial edema, interstitial shadows, and the air is in between. So this is a interstitial pneumonia. If you can't see it properly, you can just change the position of your angle of view and see. It is difficult to see, and that's why I enlarged. And there are linear shadows also, which is also likely in linear shadows in interstitial pneumonia. And nodular shadows are also possible in interstitial pneumonia. In fact, this is another X-ray where it is, I have again enlarged. I don't know whether it is visible or not. Small dot like things are there. This is actually a miliary tuberculosis. Very small dots are there. See, and these dots, miliary tuberculosis is also an interstitial disease. And that's why in miliary tuberculosis you have a drop in saturation so fast. So it's not very clearly visible. You can change your angle of vision and see if it is visible. Yeah, this is a newborn, and see the shape of the chest. It is almost never expanded. It's the hyaline membrane disease, uniform ground glassing, the air bronchogram. So the shape itself shows that it has never expanded. This lung has never expanded. See, this is congenital lobar emphysema, which is more common on the left side. See, there is herniation of the lung to the right side, and diaphragm is pushed down. Here diaphragm is traceable, but here it is not traceable. Instead, all the intestine has gone up. So this is a diaphragmatic hernia which is pushing the mediastinum to the opposite side. This is a diaphragm is fully traceable. So this is diaphragm has gone up, but it is evaneration of diaphragm and not diaphragmatic hernia. Evaneration of diaphragm generally does not push the mediastinum to the other side, but it is possible. It depends on how much space it is going up. So here it is, although it is a rotated film, but still it seems that the mediastinum is shifted. This is not exactly a chest X-ray, but still to show pneumoperitoneum. Could be an exam X-ray, that's why. And this is another respiratory X-ray. See the adenoid. It's almost obliterating more than 50% of the airway. So this is the normal breadth of the airway, and here it is narrowed because of this adenoid. Now, before I sign off, this is one important message. You should not repeat X-ray in a clinically improving child with pneumonia. This is the X-ray with which the pneumonia was treated, and yes, of course there are lucencies inside, and this is the small opacity there. And after the child clinically improved, this is the X-ray. So it doesn't mean that the child is deteriorating. It takes time for the X-ray to improve. It is like a riot scene. After the riot is settled, then you take a photograph. There will be a lot of damages that will be there in the photograph, and that is this damage that is shown. The macrophages will come and clear it, but give it time, and that's it. So thank you very much for patient listening, and we will be coming again with cardiac X-rays sometime later. Thank you.